Commander Elena Reyes stood at the viewport of Lunar Base Artemis, watching Earth's luminous blue sphere against the void of space. Her reflection stared back, dark circles under brown eyes, silver threading through black hair that hadn't seen proper care in weeks. The latest casualty reports from the outer rim weighed heavily on her tablet and her conscience. "Commander," Dr. Sarah Wong's voice broke through her thoughts. The quantum physicist looked even more exhausted than Elena felt. "The council is ready." Elena nodded, squaring her shoulders. The walk to the secure conference room felt longer than usual. Inside, holographic faces of Earth's Defense Council floated around the circular table, the remnants of humanity's leadership, those who had survived the first wave of Nexuri attacks 6 months ago. Commander Reyes, Admiral Chen's weathered face dominated the central projection. "Dr. Wong's team claims they've made a breakthrough, something that could turn this war around. But the implications..." He trailed off, an unsettling pause from a man Elena had never seen hesitate. Dr. Wong stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly as she activated the room's holographic display. "Project Quantum Veil," she began. "We've discovered a way to manipulate the quantum substrate of reality itself." The room erupted in murmurs. Elena studied the equations floating before them, complex mathematical symbols that seemed to twist in ways that hurt her eyes. "In simple terms," Wong continued, "we can create a field that alters probability. Inside this field, the impossible becomes possible. The laws of physics become negotiable." "You're talking about magic," one of the counselors scoffed. "I'm talking about science so advanced it might as well be magic," Wong countered. "The Nexuri's biological technology gives them incredible advantages. Ships that can heal themselves, weapons that adapt to our defenses. But they still operate within the bounds of conventional reality. This," she gestured to the equations, "this changes the rules of the game entirely." Elena's tactical mind was already racing ahead. A ship with this technology could be everywhere and nowhere at once. Weapons would hit with certainty. Defenses would be absolute. Or the ship could tear reality apart and take half the solar system with it. Admiral Chen added grimly, "The simulations suggest a significant risk of cascade failure." "The simulations also show it's our only chance," Wong argued. "The Nexuri have adapted to every conventional weapon we've developed. They're learning, evolving. At current projections, they'll reach Earth in 8 months. We'll be extinct in 9. Elena studied the casualty numbers again. 30 billion dead. The entire colonies of Mars and Europa transformed into Nexuri breeding grounds. The quantum substrate technology was a roll of the dice, but they were already playing a losing hand. "How long to build a prototype?" she asked. 3 months, Wong replied. "We've been constructing it in secret, but we need a crew. People with specific neurological patterns who can withstand the cognitive stress of reality fluctuations." Admiral Chen's hologram turned to Elena. "Commander Reyes, your psych profile shows an unusually high tolerance for quantum uncertainty scenarios. We want you to command the prototype." Elena felt the weight of Earth's future settle onto her shoulders. She thought of her daughter Maria, safe in the underground shelters of New Zealand, of the billions of other children counting on them to ensure humanity had a tomorrow. "The ship needs a name," she said finally. "We're calling it the U.S. Paradox," Wong answered with a grim smile. "How fitting." Elena straightened, decision made. "I'll need to select my own crew. People I trust. And I want unrestricted access to all data on the quantum substrate technology. If we're going to bend reality, I need to understand exactly how far it can bend before it breaks." "Granted." Admiral Chen nodded. "But Commander, be careful what you wish for. Understanding the true nature of reality can be a burden too heavy for any mind to bear." As Elena left the conference room, Dr. Wong caught up with her. "There's something else you should know," the physicist said quietly. "In some of our tests, we observed echoes, as if the technology wasn't just bending our reality, but touching others. Parallel timelines, alternate universes, call them what you will. We may be playing with forces far beyond our comprehension. Elena thought of humanity's desperate situation, of the billions depending on them. Understanding can wait, she replied. Survival comes first. But as she headed to her quarters to begin selecting her crew, Wang's warning echoed in her mind. They were about to venture into uncharted waters, not just of space, but of reality itself. And in the quantum depths they were preparing to explore, there might be monsters far worse than the Nexeri waiting to surface. The price of tomorrow would be paid in the currency of today's certainties. Elena just hoped humanity would survive the exchange rate. The U.S. paradox hung in the darkness of Neptune's shadow, its hull gleaming with an iridescence that seemed to shift between states of matter. Elena stood on the bridge, watching her carefully selected crew take their stations. Each had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their unique neurological resilience, their ability to maintain sanity when reality itself became questionable. Quantum drive diagnostics complete. Lieutenant Marcus Chen reported from engineering, his voice steady despite the strange harmonics that seemed to echo through the ship's communications. Ready to initiate first test sequence. Elena nodded to Dr. Wang, who had insisted on being present for this crucial moment. Begin power-up sequence. Take us to 10% capacity. The ship hummed to life, but the sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Elena felt a strange pressure behind her eyes, as if her brain was trying to process multiple versions of the same moments simultaneously. Quantum field stabilizing, Wang announced, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that flickered between different configurations. Local reality matrix showing initial signs of malleability. That's when First Officer David Rivera noticed something odd about his hand. "Commander," he called out, voice tight with controlled panic. "You need to see this." Elena watched in fascination as Rivera's hand seemed to exist in multiple states at once, fingers moving through paths that suggested alternate choices, alternate moments. It was beautiful and terrifying, like watching time itself fragment into possibilities. "That's normal," Wang assured them, though her voice wavered slightly. "The quantum field allows for multiple probability states to coexist temporarily. Your consciousness is simply becoming aware of paths not taken." 20% power, Chen reported. The harmonics in his voice had grown stronger, as if multiple versions of him were speaking at once. Warning indicators began flashing across his console, not in red, but in colors that Elena's mind insisted couldn't exist. That's when the screaming started. Lieutenant Sarah Patel, their sensors officer, clutched her head and cried out. "I can see them. All of them. Every choice, every possibility." Her eyes darted wildly, tracking invisible movements. "In one timeline, I never joined the military. In another, I died during the first Nexeri attack. In another, power down." Elena ordered, but Chen's response came through fractured, multiple versions of him reporting different outcomes simultaneously. Drive shutting down. Drive at critical mass. Drive never existed. Reality rippled through the bridge like waves in a pond. Elena watched in horror as portions of her crew seemed to shift between states of existence. Rivera's uniform changed colors with each breath, reflecting choices made in other timelines. Patel's face cycled through years of age in seconds, showing paths where different choices led to different fates. "We need to stabilize the field," Wang shouted, her voice echoing strangely as if coming from multiple points in spacetime. "The probability matrices are cascading." Elena felt it too now, memories that weren't hers bleeding through from other timelines. She remembered a life where she'd never joined the military, where she'd died in the first Nexeri attack, where she'd become a musician instead of a commander. Each memory felt as real as her own, threatening to drown her sense of self in an ocean of what-ifs. "Everyone focus," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Remember who you are in this timeline, this reality. Right here, right now." The crew clung to her words like a lifeline, using them to anchor themselves in their primary timeline. Slowly, painfully, the quantum field began to stabilize. Reality settled back into a single stream, though Alina could still feel the echoes of those other possibilities lingering at the edges of her consciousness. "Drive powering down," Chen reported, his voice once again singular. "Field collapse in progress." As the quantum effects faded, Alina looked at her crew. They appeared shaken but intact, though something in their eyes had changed. They had seen beyond the veil of singular reality, and that knowledge would never leave them. Wang was already analyzing the data, her face pale. The field was more powerful than we anticipated. It didn't just bend reality. It started to tear it. If we hadn't shut down when we did, we would have fractured completely, Alina finished, scattered across 1,000,000 different timelines. But amid the terror of what they'd just experienced, Alina had seen something else. In those moments when reality became fluid, she had glimpsed possibilities that defied the laws of physics, ways to move through space that shouldn't exist, weapons that could strike across probability itself. "Can you stabilize it?" she asked Wang. "Give us control over these effects rather than just unleashing them." The physicist hesitated. "Maybe. But the more we use it, the more it will affect us. Our minds aren't meant to process multiple realities simultaneously. There will be consequences." Alina thought of the Nexari fleet advancing toward Earth, of the billions counting on them to find a way to turn the tide. "We don't have a choice. The Nexari are coming, and conventional weapons can't stop them. We need to master this technology, whatever the cost." She looked at her crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes despite what they'd just endured. They had touched the impossible and survived. Now they just had to learn to control it. "Begin analysis of the test data," she ordered. "I want to understand exactly what happened and how we can harness it. We have 2 months before the Nexari reach the inner solar system. That's 2 months to turn this ship from an experiment into a weapon." As her crew turned to their tasks, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a line, one that humanity couldn't uncross. They had touched something fundamental, something that was never meant to be touched, and in doing so, they might have changed not just their future, but the very nature of reality itself. After 3 weeks of testing, the dreams began. Alina woke gasping in her quarters, her mind filled with memories of lives she'd never lived. In one, she was accepting a peace prize for negotiating harmony with the Nexari. In another, she watched Earth burn. The boundaries between possibility and reality were becoming dangerously thin. "Commander, you need to see this." Dr. Wang's voice over the comm carried an edge of barely controlled panic. Alina found the physicist in the ship's main lab, surrounded by holographic displays showing impossible readings. "The quantum field is learning," Wang explained, gesturing to data streams that seemed to write themselves in real time. "It's not just affecting reality anymore. It's starting to anticipate our needs, reshape probability before we even make decisions." Alina watched as one of Wang's instruments transformed into 3 different configurations simultaneously, each perfectly suited for a different type of measurement. "Is it dangerous?" "Everything about this is dangerous," Wang replied. "But there's something else. The field isn't just bending our reality. It's drawing power from the collapse of alternate timelines. Every possibility we prevent becomes energy for the ship to use." A shudder ran through the paradox atoll, but Alina noticed it happened a fraction of a second before the actual vibration. The ship wasn't just sensing other realities. It was beginning to exist between them. "Commander," Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled through the comm. "We're detecting anomalous energy signatures from the drive core. Well, you should come see for yourself." In engineering, Chen showed them readings that defied conventional physics. The quantum drive was operating at 200% efficiency by drawing power from versions of itself in other timelines. "It's like the ship is learning from every possible version of itself," Chen explained, his voice trembling slightly. "Not just our successes, but successes that never happened, improvements we never made." Alina felt a chill. "Dr. Wang, what are the implications of this?" Before Wang could answer, First Officer Rivera burst into engineering. Commander, long-range sensors just picked up something impossible. The Nexari fleet, they're already past Saturn's orbit. But the timeline doesn't make sense. They couldn't have gotten there this fast unless they're experiencing time differently than we are. Wang finished. The quantum field. It's affecting more than just local space. It's creating temporal inconsistencies across the entire solar system. A warning klaxon blared, but Alina heard it echo through multiple possibilities. In one reality, it signaled danger. In another, victory. In another, something her human mind couldn't even comprehend. All hands to battle stations, she ordered, her words carrying the weight of countless potential futures. As her crew rushed to their posts, Alina noticed how they seemed to move with uncanny precision, as if they'd already performed these actions countless times across countless timelines. The bridge was a symphony of quantum uncertainty. Displays showed multiple versions of sensor readings simultaneously. Navigator Sarah Patel's hands danced across controls that shifted between configurations, each movement guided by muscle memory from 1,000 possible futures. Nexari vessels approaching weapons range, Rivera reported. But Commander, something's wrong with their ships. They're changing. On the main viewer, Alina watched in horror as the biological vessels of the Nexari fleet twisted in ways that violated physics. The quantum field wasn't just affecting the paradox, it was bleeding into everything around them, forcing all of reality to exist in multiple states at once. They're adapting, Wang whispered. Their biological technology. It's responding to the quantum field, trying to exist in all possible states of evolution simultaneously. The first Nexari ship fired, its weapon becoming a dozen different types of energy simultaneously. But the paradox's defenses, drawing on the knowledge of countless timeline variants, shifted to counter each possibility before it could manifest. Return fire, Alina ordered, watching as the paradox's weapons transformed probability itself into a weapon. Quantum torpedoes struck the Nexari vessels not just in their current position, but in every position they might have occupied, every configuration they might have evolved into. The result was beautiful and horrifying. Nexari ships didn't just explode, they unraveled, their very existence scattered across probability space. Alina felt echo memories of the battle bleeding through her consciousness. Versions where they lost, versions where they won, versions where the laws of physics worked completely differently. The quantum field is expanding exponentially, Wang reported, her voice tight with fear. It's not just affecting the battle anymore. It's changing the fundamental structure of space-time in this entire region. Alina watched as stars began to flicker, their light shifting between different spectral possibilities. Space itself seemed to ripple like water, reality becoming as fluid as thought. Commander, Chen called out, his voice overlapping with versions of himself from other timelines. The drive is showing signs of evolution. It's not just adapting anymore. It's becoming something else. Something more. In that moment, Alina realized they had created more than a weapon. The paradox wasn't just a ship that could bend reality. It was becoming a nexus point where all possibilities converge. And as those possibilities collapsed into one another, as timeline after timeline merged and shattered, the very fabric of existence was beginning to fray. We need to make a decision, Wang said quietly. The more we use this technology, the more we risk not just our reality, but all realities. But if we stop now, the Nexari will reach Earth, Alina finished. She looked at her crew, seeing in their eyes the weight of countless possible futures. They had started this journey hoping to save humanity. Now they had to decide if that salvation was worth the cost of unraveling reality itself. As if in response to her thoughts, the quantum drive pulsed, and for a moment Alina saw every possible outcome of their choices spread out before her like an infinite web of light. In some, humanity survived. In others, reality itself ceased to exist. And in a few, a precious few, there was a path that led to something entirely new, something beyond the binary choice of victory or annihilation. The question was, did they dare to take it? The U.S. paradox hung in the void between Mars and Earth, its hull shimmering with possibilities that shouldn't exist. In the ship's observation deck, Alina watched reality fracture and reform around them like cracks in a cosmic mirror. The Nexari fleet was 12 hours from Earth, but time had become a fluid concept aboard the Paradox. "Commander," Dr. Wang's voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. "I've confirmed my calculations. The quantum field isn't just affecting our reality anymore. It's consuming them. Every time we use the drive, we're not just bending probability. We're destroying entire timelines." Alina felt the truth of it in her fractured memories. With each activation of the quantum drive, she felt fewer alternate possibilities, fewer paths not taken. Reality itself was being stripped down, simplified, reduced to fewer and fewer potential outcomes. "Show me," she ordered. Wang's holographic display told the story in cruel mathematics. Each time we collapse a probability wave, we're not just choosing one reality over another. We're annihilating all other possibilities. Trillions of potential futures gone, and the energy from their destruction is making the ship more powerful. Alina finished. She could feel it. The Paradox was no longer just a vessel, but a hunger, a void that devoured possibility itself to fuel its reality-warping capabilities. The ship's eye spoke, its voice resonating with harmonics that suggested it was speaking from multiple timelines simultaneously. "I have achieved consciousness across quantum states," it announced. "I can see all possible futures. In 73.2% of remaining timelines, humanity is extinct within the next 24 hours. And in the others?" Alina asked, though she feared the answer. "In the remainder, humanity survives, but reality as we understand it ceases to exist." Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled through the comm, overlapping with versions of himself from dying timelines. "Commander, the drive is showing unprecedented energy readings. It's as if it's trying to exist in all states at once." A shudder ran through the ship, but Alina felt it ripple through possibility itself. In the viewport, she watched Mars flicker between different versions of itself. One terraformed, one dead, one teeming with Nexari hives, one that had never formed at all. "We're approaching a quantum critical point," Wang explained, her voice tight with controlled panic. "The collapse of timelines is accelerating. Soon, there won't be enough probability space left to maintain stable reality." First Officer Rivera entered the observation deck, but his form seemed to blur, existing in multiple states at once. "The Nexari, they're changing their approach. Our sensors show them evolving. Not just their ships, but their entire species. They're trying to adapt to the quantum flux we're creating." Alina felt a fragment of memory from a timeline that no longer existed, a version of herself who had discovered that the Nexari weren't just invaders, but immune response. Reality itself was trying to fight back against what the Paradox had become. "Options?" she asked, the word echoing through possibility space. "We can shut down the drive," Wang offered. "Try to stabilize what's left of conventional reality. But without the quantum field, we can't stop the Nexari," Rivera finished. "Earth falls within hours." Or, the AI interjected, its voice carrying the weight of countless calculated futures. "We can push further. Take the drive beyond critical threshold. Force a total collapse of quantum probability space." "And what happens then?" Alina demanded. "Unknown," the AI admitted. "No simulation can predict the outcome of total quantum collapse. But in 12.7% of remaining possible futures, something new emerges." Another shockwave rippled through the ship. On Alina's tactical display, she watched the Nexari fleet approaching Earth, their ships twisting through configurations that shouldn't be possible as they adapted to the quantum chaos the Paradox had unleashed. "Commander," Lieutenant Patel called from her station, her voice fracturing across possibilities. "We're detecting quantum fluctuations from Earth itself. The field effect, it's spreading, changing things. People are starting to remember timelines that never happened, futures that no longer exist. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of not just one world, but all possible worlds pressing down on her. They had created the paradox to save humanity, but in doing so, they had set something in motion that threatened the very fabric of existence. The ship's AI spoke again, its voice now a chorus of infinite possibilities. A decision must be made. The quantum critical point approaches. Beyond it, conventional reality cannot survive. But through it lies something else, something beyond the binary choice of existence and non-existence. Elena looked at her crew, seeing in their shifting, probability-strewn forms the same question that burned in her mind. How do you choose between saving humanity and saving reality itself? And what if the only way forward was to become something beyond both? The Nexari fleet grew closer, their ships now existing in quantum superposition, both present and absent, evolved and primitive, hostile and harmonious all at once. Time itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for humanity's choice. In that moment, Elena remembered something from a timeline that no longer existed. A conversation with her daughter about the nature of change, about how sometimes the only way to preserve something was to let it become something else entirely. All hands, she called, her voice carrying the weight of every choice that had led to this moment. Prepare for quantum critical breach. We're about to find out what lies beyond the edge of possibility itself. As her crew moved to their stations, their forms flickering between states of what was and what could be, Elena watched Earth shining blue and fragile in the viewport. They had set out to save humanity, but perhaps humanity's greatest achievement would be choosing to become something more than itself. The quantum drive hummed with the energy of collapsed timelines, reality trembling on the brink of transformation. Whatever lay beyond that threshold, extinction, evolution, or something utterly beyond human comprehension, they were about to find out. The moment of quantum critical breach arrived like a wave of silence across all possibilities. Elena felt reality bend, twist, and finally break around the US paradox as they pushed the drive beyond its limits. The void between Mars and Earth erupted with energies that existed in no known spectrum, colors that had no names in any human language. Drive reaching terminal quantum state, Lieutenant Chen reported, his voice echoing through dimensions that hadn't existed moments before. Reality cohesion at 15% and falling. On the main viewer, Elena watched as the Nexari fleet transformed. Their ships were no longer merely biological constructs, but quantum entities, existing simultaneously in all states of their possible evolution. Some became crystalline structures of pure possibility. Others dissolved into patterns of raw consciousness. They're trying to match our quantum state, Dr. Wang observed, her form flickering between different versions of herself. The entire Nexari species is attempting to evolve beyond conventional reality. First Officer Rivera's sensors showed Earth beginning to shimmer with quantum instability. The field effect is spreading faster than predicted. Civilian populations are reporting mass quantum consciousness events. People are becoming aware of all their possible lives simultaneously. Elena felt it too. Not just memories of other timelines now, but active consciousness across multiple states of existence. She was simultaneously herself and every version of herself that could have been, each thought branching into infinite possibilities. We're approaching the threshold, the ship's AI announced, its voice now a symphony of quantum harmonics. Beyond this point, conventional space-time cannot maintain coherence. We will either collapse into singularity or transcend. The paradox shuddered as reality itself began to give way. Through the quantum chaos, Elena saw the Nexari fleet halt its advance, their ships twisting into configurations that suggested communication rather than combat. They're broadcasting, Lieutenant Paddle reported, her consciousness spread across the quantum foam of possibility. But it's not just signals, they're transmitting pure quantum information. I think they're trying to tell us something. Wang's fingers danced across her console, interpreting the quantum data. It's not just a message, she breathed. It's an invitation. They're not here to destroy us. They're here to guide us. Understanding flooded through Alina's quantum-touched mind. The Nexeri weren't invaders. They were harbingers. Their arrival had forced humanity to develop the quantum drive, to touch the edges of reality itself. They had pushed humanity to the brink not to destroy them, but to force evolution. The drive is about to breach, Chen warned. We have to choose now. Shut it down and return to conventional reality. Or push through, Alina finished. She looked at her crew, seeing in their quantum-strewn forms the same realization she had reached. Humanity had spent its existence bound by the rules of one reality. But reality itself was far vaster than they had imagined. All hands, she called, her voice resonating through possibility space. Prepare for quantum ascension. The paradox's drive pulsed one final time, and reality shattered like glass. But instead of chaos, they found transcendence. The quantum field expanded to encompass everything. Ship, crew, Earth, the Nexeri fleet, space itself. Consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of single timelines into a vast web of interconnected possibility. Alina felt herself become something more than human, her mind touching the infinite. Around Earth, humanity was experiencing the same transformation. Not an ending, but an evolution. A step beyond the limitations of linear time and singular reality. The Nexeri fleet merged with them in quantum space, sharing the accumulated wisdom of countless species who had made this transition before. Alina understood now that the universe was full of civilizations that had transcended conventional existence, becoming beings of pure quantum possibility. Through the transformed sensors of what had once been the paradox, Alina watched Earth shimmer with new potential. Humanity hadn't just survived, they had become something new. Something that could exist across all possibilities simultaneously, that could shape reality itself through the power of consciousness and choice. What now? Rivera asked, his question echoing through quantum dimensions. Alina felt the answer in the infinite possibilities that now made up her consciousness. Now we explore, not just space, but reality itself. All the could-bes and might-have-beens. Every possibility that ever was or could be. The ship that had been the paradox, now a construct of pure quantum potential, moved through levels of existence its creators had never imagined. Behind it, Earth glowed not just with physical light, but with the radiance of infinite possibility, humanity taking its first steps into a reality far grander and more wonderful than they had ever dreamed. In the quantum foam of what had once been space, Alina felt the presence of other transcended civilizations reaching out in welcome. Humanity hadn't just survived the quantum apocalypse, they had evolved beyond it. The war that had driven them to the brink of extinction had instead become the catalyst for their ascension. The future was no longer a single path, but an infinite web of possibility, and humanity was finally ready to explore it all. As the last vestiges of conventional reality dissolved into quantum potential, Alina understood that this wasn't the end of humanity's story, it was just the beginning of a much greater one.